I am very happy to try to contribute some little part to this very important and significant documentary film that Irwin and Edward are making for, well, shall we say, for all of us and for posterity. But as they well know, I am certainly not a speaker. I have always, in my contact with Baba, tried to balance my rather initially academic and theoretical nature with practical work. Baba's influence on me has been one that stresses very positively selfless service. Naturally, I have perhaps many lifetimes to go before it is really selfless. But on the other hand, doing rather than speaking has been the emphasis I have felt that Baba has given to me in my life today. Well, I met Baba first in 1952, but I had been waiting 9 years to meet him. I was a student in 1943 at Columbia University when Phyllis Frederick had told me that she heard of Baba's 3 women disciples, Norina Machabelli, Nadine Tolstoy, and Elizabeth Patterson, just returned from India to spread Baba's message. At that time, I was given an invitation to hear Norina Machabelli and to meet some of these disciples. In going to hear Norina speak about Meher Baba, I was already very overwhelmed with feelings that this was a very momentous occasion. There was no question about it. It was as if I were entering into a deep blue yonder. And as I entered that apartment, I first met Nadine. And Nadine was a very loving woman who embraced me and invited me in then. Now, I knew that something had happened even on this initial encounter with these ladies, and Elizabeth too. And as time went on, and Phyllis and I agreed that we should, if you like, test this, we came to many, many such meetings, talks. Baba had confirmed that Norina was the only one in America that had been given the faculty of thought transmission. And it was through thought transmission that Baba had given out many, many messages to us. Well, eventually, to make a long story short, Phyllis Frederick and I were invited to live with these 3 disciples of the West. And we lived with them for approximately 4 years. Well, we waited in all, after they had been called back to India, that is, only Norina and Elizabeth, because by this time Nadine had passed away, I believe in 1947, and Norina and Elizabeth had been called back to India in 1948. Then we continued to wait for Baba's anticipated visit again to America. And this was to be actually in 1952. It was then that we did meet Baba. We had somehow arranged to see Baba, Phyllis and I, before he actually met us. Now I'll explain that. Baba had arrived by air and at either LaGuardia or Kennedy Airport at that time. I don't know which it was. And he had then been driven by car to the Pennsylvania station, where he was to board the train to Florence, North Carolina, and then be driven again to the center. Well, it was during his waiting period at the Pennsylvania station that Phyllis and I, in a very careful and guarded way, went to an observation platform, a balcony, where we could view Baba and his mandali. This was a secret, if you like. We didn't really think we should do that, although in a way we figured this wasn't really meeting Baba. Baba told us we would meet him first in the center in South Carolina. Well, that was in April that Baba did arrive in 1952. Our appointment to meet Baba actually at the center was in May. And on May the 9th, Baba did call us for our interview. It was in the lagoon cabin that Baba saw most of us at that time, separately, individually. And I think at possibly about 10 in the morning, I was called for my interview. Baba was standing on the threshold of the lagoon cabin, waiting, and as I came up those little steps, we embraced. It was, of course, unbelievable. This encounter with Baba, for most of us, is always unbelievable, insofar as he radiates such enormous love and beauty that this little self cannot comprehend, appreciate, nor really grasp in any way in that instant. It is enough, though, to have germinate for the rest of one's lifetime. And so with that injection of love, Baba made me feel that I was accepted. I just felt, up to that time, even during those 9 years, almost hesitant to want to meet Baba. I always had feelings, you might say, of inferiority, of unworthiness. This was self-inflicted, certainly not encouraged by any of Baba's disciples. In any case, Baba immediately gave me the impression of the most that I could ever experience in love, and that was a combination of the best that my mother and father ever had shown to me, plus that of what those three wonderful women of his had shown to me, namely Norina, Elizabeth, and Nadine. And Baba then proceeded to tell me that I would stay at the center for the duration of his stay, which was, don't remember precisely, but anyway, close to a couple of weeks, and that I would be staying near his women. Now, Baba had brought for the first time his Eastern women, and also up to now for the last time. They were his greatest beloved, Mehera. Mani came on that trip. Dr. Goher, Meheru, and the two Western disciples, Rano and Kitty. Well, as you know, Baba had decided that Kitty should remain at the center, and so she did not return to India, but the others did after their this special darshan in the United States. Well, before the end of the interview, Baba had called back in Phyllis. Now, Phyllis had already had her own special interview, and Baba, touching his heart, gave us, before the end of the interview, Baba had recalled in Phyllis Frederick, who already had had her interview, and pointing to his heart, Baba said, "Let these words be inscribed in your heart. Nothing is real save God. Nothing matters but love of God." It was Adi, I believe, who was doing the interpreting. Baba had arranged, as I said, for us to stay close to the House of the Eastern Women. Phyllis and I, we stayed in the twin cabin, I believe. And he customarily went to spend his evenings with them, at which time there were stories told, sometimes certainly humorous stories, among the others, sometimes stories of saints. We were ordinarily in there with the Eastern women as well as with others, of course, of the close women disciples, such as Elizabeth and Margaret and Kitty and all of those. And it was, of course, an overwhelming privilege as far as I was concerned. And it is just Baba's total, incomprehensible compassion that allows one to experience such things as his divine company, as well as the company of his very good Mandali. Well, I do recall one evening in the guest house when we were regaling Baba with various stories that Baba particularly wanted to hear stories from the Bible or about saints. And when my turn came, I told about the story of St. Peter. Baba, after hearing the story of St. Peter and his denial of Jesus, elaborated on this theme by explaining that his disciples, Peter and Judas, were both very great instruments of his to fulfill their predestined roles. And he made further explanations about how they functioned for him under a veil and were really very great disciples. On another evening, Baba had us play a little game. Now, there was a prelude to this. We were sitting with him, and I was looking at Baba. On another evening, Baba had us play a little game, and there was a prelude to that I would like to explain. I was gazing at Baba very solemnly and seriously, and Baba indicated, as he does, what are you thinking of? And I even think tears came to my eyes. And I had running through my mind and my feelings somehow the total, well, hardly the total, but the feelings of Baba's burden, some feeling of his great vicarious suffering for us all. And I try to tell Baba this, and Baba then explained that he does suffer for the whole universe. Now, soon after that, he had us play this little game. It was that Baba had in his divine mind a particular number, and he asked us to guess that number, and so each one had a turn. When my turn came, I said number 11, and apparently that was the number Baba was thinking of. Well, there was no special significance put to it at that time. Nevertheless, 11 days after that, when Baba was traveling with his disciples by automobile on their way to Ojai, they met with the accident that Baba had foretold. And only then were we able to see the significance of that number 11. Baba had said of that accident, of course, that it was necessary that it should happen in America, that God had willed it so. Very much happened during that first trip in 1952. Baba had, first of all, for the first time, allowed me to focus on him totally.